So I thought I'd take a minute this morning and show what I did to put a chute turner and a deflector motor on my Frontier snowblower. First, I got these electric motors online. I think it was a place called Science Surplus or something like that. And they were 14 bucks a piece for these power seat motors. And it comes with this screw here on it. This one here, I just ended up taking out the manual hand crank to turn the chute. I slid the motor shaft in there and drilled a hole through the motor shaft right where the original hole was and put the same screw back in. Now this is a little bit loose here, but it really doesn't affect it. It still works good. Then to keep the motor from turning, I just took a piece of 5/16 round stock, welded a bolt here on the end, and it slides down through this hole that was in the motor. Then just put a nylock nut on the bottom. That keeps the motor from turning. The weight of the motor, which doesn't weigh much, is actually here on the shaft still. And then I just ran this round stock to a convenient location. There was already a hole there, so I did that and just put a cotter pin through the other end. Then I hooked up the wires, and once I got wires slid down on those terminals, I packed it full of RTV. I didn't want water getting in this one since it stands up on end. Water could accumulate right in that plug, so I packed it full of RTV. There's just two wires there, a red and a black. I put them in some loom. Then I just cut a oil jug apart, and that slides right down over this to keep it protected. And then pretty much the same deal with the deflector motor. Got a red and a black going into the connector. Made this bracket, welded a 1/4 inch bolt on it. I don't know if you can see that or not. I guess right there you can. Then just put a nylock on it. Then up here on top, took a long carriage bolt, cut the head off the carriage bolt, laid the motor shaft, laid this motor shaft and this carriage bolt in a V block and tacked them together, then welded it. This is just 1/2 inch. Then I took a 1/2 inch nut here and welded it to a 5/16 bolt. Let me get around here to the other side. Sorry the camera's so shaky. But I just double nutted that bolt there. I used galvanized carriage bolts here, double nutted. Same down there, galvanized carriage bolts. And then I took the black plastic hand wheels off and just put on nylocks here again and just barely snugged them up on the existing nylon washers on both sides. Then I ran these two wires up through here. And you don't have to get this elaborate, but I bought a 4-pin trailer connector, made a bracket there for it. So obviously when I want to remove the snowblower, I can. And then this harness here just goes into the cab. I'll show you what I got in there. Let me get a flashlight. Okay. Alright, we're back. So my harness comes in the cab here, and I taken power out of here, and I bought this adapter that gives me 3 power outlets. Made a bracket to hold it, and this center one is what comes out with power, comes up through this harness. And then here on the door handle, I guess you'd call it, I just mounted these switches in these little angle brackets I found. Had them laying here in the shop off something. Put a hose clamp around it to hold them in place. This top one swings the chute side to side, and then this one here does the up and down for the deflector. I'll plug that in here and show you. Let's see if you can see through the glass here. Turn off my flashlight. So this is side to side. Could stand to be a little faster, but it works. And then for the deflector, now this is quite slow, but you don't move it that much, so it still works pretty good. There's down. I'll show you what that looks like out there. And I'll show you up. And there's up. So I was able to buy the motors for like $14 a piece. So overall, it didn't cost much. I'll include a wiring diagram for those switches. Okay, here's the wiring diagram for the switch. What you're going to need for a switch is double pole, double throw, or you can search, look for DP, DT. This is looking at the back side of the switch. So you have your 12 volt negative to one of the terminals in the center, your 12 volt positive to the other terminal in the center. And then either end, you can just take and run your wires to your motor. Doesn't matter which terminal is what color, as long as one terminal goes to the motor and the other terminal goes to the motor. Then on the opposite end from where you hooked your motor, you want to take a wire and loop it over the rest of these and hook it to this terminal, and then take a wire from this terminal and loop it over to that. Then when you flip your switch one way, it runs this power and ground to the terminals here, right out to the motor. When you flip the switch the other way, it runs this power and ground to these terminals, but then because of your wiring here, the polarity gets flipped and then sent to the motor. That's how you get your two different directions.